Okay, so welcome to the state captain training again. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. If anyone has any questions throughout, we'll definitely leave some time at the end. But if you have questions throughout, you can feel free to type into the chat bar as well, and we'll take a look.
It's a great price. It's pretty, and to me, it matches that.
Oh, could we have everybody mute as well if they're just getting some background noise? Okay. All right. Sorry about that. Okay, so for this training, we have myself, we have Barb from Resolve as well, and then we have Ryan, who is our state captain lead. We also have our state captain committee members. So we have Elizabeth, Taylor, Sue, Lauren, Emily, Kieran, and they will be, they have been and they will continue to reach out to you. They each have a regional area of the US that they will be connecting with various state captains that fit in that region. So please feel free to connect and contact anyone from the committee or Ryan or myself with questions that you have. All right, so for this webinar, we wanted to run through some, timeline, materials, some tips for organizing groups. We want to go through, the bills and sort of explain that process for this year. Talk through quickly some, elevator, social media, webinar resources, and then we will again have time to answer any questions that people may have. And again, here are some contacts. We also have our state captain mentors who have very graciously said that they would be, happy to reach out and connect with anyone. So again, they are resources as well to connect with. And now I'm going to turn it over to Ryan to sort of talk through, some of these slides.
Sorry, I think you can hear me now, right? Great. Hi, everyone. I just want to follow up on something that was on that last slide that Tracy just mentioned before I get started. There are state captain coordinators, the regional coordinators. Please lean on your coordinators if you have any questions or concerns or issues. That's really what they're there for, okay? You should have had somebody reach out to you recently to confirm your commitment to be a state captain. That person who reached out to you is your state captain coordinator, and they will be reaching out to you again between now and Advocacy Day. As much as we don't want any advocates going to a meeting on their own, and you're going to hear that several times throughout this training, we also don't want state captains to feel like you're out on an island training your delegations by yourself, okay? You should have received that email again in the past week confirming your commitment. You're going to hear from them again with documents that will help you plan for Advocacy Day and the list of confirmed advocates for your state delegation. So you're going to get a list of the roster for your state delegation, which leads me to the timeline for captains, okay? Today is May 20th. We are less than a month away. Between now and June 3rd, which is the last day of registration, you will receive a state captain's manual that you can really lean on to answer any questions about, leading your delegation on Advocacy Day, scripts that you can use as a framework for the meetings with the members of Congress, the list of confirmed advocates, and there'll be some more links to spots on the Resolve website that you can really use as resources to help you train the delegates. Now, as you receive the list of confirmed registrants, please send an email to the delegation introducing yourself as the state captain. We want you to set up a date or a time for a practice call to walk through sort of a mock meeting with the member or staff member, okay? We also have given you kind of a template for reaching out to your state delegation as well, okay? As the registration closes on June 3rd, we're recommending that these practice calls are set up as soon as possible after that, but for the period between June 3rd and June 14th. You don't want to be having your first call on the afternoon of June 16th, okay? This June 3rd to June 14th gives state captains about a 2-week window to schedule a practice or two if you feel it's necessary with the delegation prior to the end of that window on June 14th. Now, while we would request that such a practice occurs before June 14th, I would personally recommend a regroup on the 15th or 16th just to make sure that everyone is still on the same page and address any last minute questions before Advocacy Day on June 17th. We'll also have a cram session on the 16th, which we'll mention later, okay? You can go to the next slide. Okay. All right, so the materials that I mentioned that you're going to be getting, you're going to be receiving a package of materials within the next week that's going to include several things. First of all, State Captain Instructional Manual. This is a resource for you between now and on Advocacy Day. It's going to include cell phone numbers and email addresses for the state captain coordinators, for myself and Tracy, poor Tracy. It's going to explain the state captain structure. It's going to give you sample communications that you can send to any of the confirmed advocates in your group so that you can introduce yourselves, suggestions for researching your audience on Advocacy Day because you're going to want to know about that person. We have found that makes the greatest impact if you are able to determine that a member of Congress has actually used some sort of assistance. A lot of it will focus on organizing your delegation. If you've never been in the role of state captain before, it will really help you to assign roles within the delegation on Advocacy Day, okay? It also have answers to some frequently asked questions. I mentioned the script. There will be a script in there that you can use to help organize for each individual meeting. I view it as a couple of things. Everybody has their own approach to these things. I know Resolve has their approach about what the meetings or how you should approach the meetings. I always simplify the meetings in my mind by answering two questions. Why are we here? And how can you, Congressperson, help us, or senator or staff, or how can you help us? So while the script is a framework to help drive the delegation organization and assign speakers to each meeting, it also helps kind of demystify the meetings for new advocates. We all know that sharing our personal stories, that why is critical to the impact that we can make. And sometimes, usually, or even ironically, that's the easiest part, but it's also easier to bridge that why to the how can you help us, and so many others who couldn't be there on Advocacy Day. So there's 4 bills that we as the constituents are asking you to support by signing on and co-sponsoring the bills. That's the ultimate ask, but you'll assign speakers for each of those separate bills that Barb will talk about in a minute. There's also 2 webinars that have been recorded about Advocacy Day. First, on the Resolve Federal Advocacy Day page, there are 4 really great webinars that simplify the issues. There's one targeted to new advocates, which I think is always a good idea to view even for experienced advocates. I always seem to learn something new every time I watch one of those. There's another that helps advocates understand how they can use social media to make an even greater impact. And then also a logistical webinar about what to expect on Advocacy Day. There will be a leave behind. In the past, I know that advocates are familiar with that physical copy that we leave behind, but because we're in this virtual environment, you won't actually be leaving anything behind as in years past. This document, I think it's still in production, will be provided to each office before your meeting. So they will have it in hand before the meeting starts. And I know that Resolve will provide a scorecard on the bills, but it's always a nice reminder that you can find the co-sponsors yourself, including the original sponsors on each of these bills by going to congress.gov, typing in the bill's keyword or the bill number, and you can find that information right there. Okay. You can go to the next slide, Tracy. Okay, so prior to Advocacy Day, what's your role between now and Advocacy Day? We've already addressed many of these ideas. Connect and organize your delegation. Check out the Advocacy Associates platform technology prior to Advocacy Day. There is one benchmark for each delegation. If you have not been able to make contact with an advocate, or they are not responding to outreach from you by June 7th, let Tracy know. She'll follow up with them to make sure that they're still committed prior to June 17th. Okay. Also, just so we know, if we need any additional support, if you could contact your regional state captain coordinator just to confirm that you have a practice call scheduled, because if there is not a practice call scheduled, we can kind of weigh in and help you get that set up. Okay. All right. Organizing your groups. All right. So some broad approaches to organizing your delegation. The next slide after this one's going to demonstrate how Resolve is assigning advocates to each meeting. You don't have to decide who will be in each meeting, say with Congressman Quigley or Representative Stefanik or Speaker Pelosi's office. Resolve has already done all that for you. Depending on the size of the delegation, Resolve has sort of broken down the larger delegations into teams to make sure that no one's going to a meeting alone. So just to illustrate this, if we only have one advocate from Congresswoman Maloney's office, 12th District of New York, and only one advocate from Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez's office in the 14th District, those two advocates will attend each other's meeting, okay? So that, again, no one goes to a meeting alone. However, if all advocates from a particular state, let's just go back to New York, all New York advocates will go to both Senate meetings. So the approach should be to use your entire state's delegation to assign roles for the Senate meetings. But if you are from a state with many advocates like California, Massachusetts, Virginia, Resolve has done a lot of the heavy lifting already for the House meetings by organizing those delegations into subgroups. If you go to the next slide, you can probably see what I'm talking about. Okay, so we used Virginia as an example here. It's a larger delegation. You can see that they already have at least, I don't know, 20 advocates, and only one is from, let's use Candace as an example. There's only one from the 4th District. Trust me, we're certain Candace is more than capable of handling the 4th District meeting all on her own, but we don't want her out on that island, right? So as you can see here, Candace at the top of the blue section, all advocates from the 7th and 8th District of Virginia will attend the meeting with the rep from the 4th District with Candace. And then she will join them in their meetings with Congresswoman Spanberger from the 7th District and Congressman Beyer from the 8th District. That is going to be a subgroup for those 3 congressional meetings. You're going to find similar breakdowns that will provide for the larger delegations that you can see here, like California, Colorado, Florida, Illinois, Massachusetts, etc. But a reminder, all 20 plus advocates from Virginia here are going to go to both Senator Warner and Senator Kane's offices for the meetings. Okay, you can go to the next slide.
Just wanted to say one point. So when you
Sure.
receive these Excel sheets, you'll see these numbers on the left side, 71, 72, 73. So within those subgroups for Virginia, for example, everyone that is in group 72 with that number is in the House meeting together. And it's also color coded differently. So just want to explain that if you are in one of these 15 states and you receive this spreadsheet and you're thinking, what are all these numbers and why are some blue or red, that's why. And we can help assist you. I know it can be confusing with some of the larger states if you have additional questions.
Okay. So we've done all this work to lead the delegation, organize the delegation, assign roles up to Advocacy Day. Advocacy Day arrives. We just have a few asks on the day of. Have all of your advocates check in by 9:15 local time to make sure that they're ready to go for the day. In the past, obviously, we have people, people get sick, people have emergencies and they can't make it. And we want to make sure that there's no-shows. I usually give my delegation the option of texting or sending me an email the morning of Advocacy Day to sort of check in for the day. In the virtual environment, in the in-person environment, this was much easier, obviously, but in the virtual environment, we just want to confirm that everybody is ready that morning. If an advocate does not check in by 9:15 local time, poor Tracy, email Tracy or the state captain coordinator again, and we're going to remove them from the meeting so that there aren't any no-shows at a meeting. Not a good look. But again, people get sick, there's emergencies, we just want to be sure. Second thing, after the meetings, make sure that you've either assigned someone or ask everyone or designate a person to populate the meeting notes into the Advocacy Associates tool. This is really critical for the follow-up protocol. I'm gonna let Tracy talk about what the morning programming means.
So prior to meetings on Advocacy Day, there will be 2 opportunities for some programming. So 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time or 11 a.m. And we'll be using this really cool new conference platform called Remo, where people will have the opportunity to network with others, but we also have programming through Resolve, ASRM, videos from advocates, member of Congress. So it could be, great kickoff prior to your meetings. You don't need to register for this. We'll provide you with a link and you'll be able to click and join in.
Tracy, just a question to that. The slide said join 2 options for the morning program. You want them to
Yes.
join both or one or the other?
That is a great question. You only have to, if you're interested, you only have to join one because they are repeated programs. So we wanted to provide people with the opportunity. I know time zone differences in scheduling, whichever option works best for your schedule and your meetings, to join in on that one. And we'll provide, as I said, the links and information for that.
And Tracy, it'll last what, about 35, 40 minutes?
Yes, exactly.
So it'll be, 8 a.m. Eastern time and 11 a.m. Eastern time, so that folks on the West Coast, you're not going to get in on the 8 a.m. Eastern. You're probably going to want to join the 11 a.m. Eastern. So that's why we offered it twice.
And then a couple state captain frequently asked questions that I wanted to just go through really quickly that we had last year. So Advocacy Associates are an organization that we work with that helps to schedule our meetings. Just as a heads up, next week, anyone who's a confirmed registrant will receive an email. Please make sure to check your spam or junk mail, or even type in Advocacy Associates, and there will be a login for your username and password to get in and view your schedule. But for why are my meetings not confirmed yet? Right now, we have, I think I just looked, we have about 90 confirmed meetings out of 300. So don't be worried if you log in and all of your meetings show up as pending right now. Many of the meetings will populate closer to Advocacy Day, and you will receive an automated email from Advocacy Associates as well every time there is a change to your schedule. So if all of your meetings say pending right now, and then next Friday you get a 10 a.m. meeting, it will pop up and show you. So make sure to watch out for those alerts. So I know Ryan touched on this a little bit, but what happens if you have a practice call and someone emails you and says, I'm so sorry, I can't attend Advocacy Day anymore? That's okay. Just make sure to please email your state captain coordinator as well as myself, and we can take them off of the meetings for that day, just to make sure that we don't have no shows or for those meetings. So what do I do if I have a technology issue? So Advocacy Associates is helping out with the Zoom calls for the day. They have a specific help line that will be available in your schedules to call throughout Advocacy Day. So if you have a problem, the first line is to call that number. If for some reason no one picks up on that number, please call and email me, and I'll provide my contact information and we'll make sure to help you get in. I do know last year that during busy times, we had some calls that sort of went on speed dial and advocates had to hang up and then call again. So you may need to do that 2 or 3 times during a really high call time for the Hill in order to get into that meeting. And then what do I do if I enter a call and a staffer is not there? So for Advocacy Associates, let us know to wait 5 minutes. And then if the staffer member of Congress is not there, to use that helpline and call them. They may be running late. There may have been a conflict. So it will, be helpful for Advocacy Associates to call that office and either reschedule or send a reminder. So that way you're not just waiting on the call for that. And then why is my meeting being canceled? So your meeting could be canceled because there's no longer a constituent in that meeting. So, the office is requested to meet with, a constituent, and if that person in your group is no longer available or attends Advocacy Day, that there may be some changes to your schedule. And again, if there are changes as well, you'll be notified of that in advance too. All right, I'm turning it over to Barb to talk about bills and issues.
So I just want to reiterate something that we keep getting asked about, and I hope that when you get asked this, that you say the same thing as well. Will the meetings all be via conference call or be via Zoom? First of all, Resolve didn't make that decision, nor did Advocacy Associates last year. It's all based on the congressional office. Remember, that was May of 2020, and most of these people hadn't done a full day of Zoom calls, which now we all have. So I just had a friend who did a Hill Day with another organization, and they said 100% of all their calls were via Zoom. Every office, all the staffers were always Zoom. Great. Remember, we have way more advocates, so we might hit a couple of offices where the staffer is clearly saying no Zoom. You can still use Zoom. So all of you guys can be on Zoom. And if the staffer is just on the phone, who cares? All of you guys can see each other and still talk. And if the staffer's on Zoom, even better. So our hope is that every office agrees to a Zoom call, because Advocacy Associates has all of that technology and capability, that every single one can be via Zoom. So just making sure you guys know that it's not something we control or Advocacy Associates. So, all right. What are we advocating for? We're advocating for equal access to all family building options so that everyone has a chance at creating the family they desire. So that's our statement. That's what we're advocating for. We are open to all and supportive of all family building options. Next slide. So what we're going to do is I'm going to walk you through a couple of things. There was as Ryan said, we have a webinar. It's short. It's only like 20 minutes that goes through the issues. We have a total of 9 issues to talk about on Advocacy Day. And because of that number, that defies all the odds for a successful meeting. The staffer will go back to the desk and go, I have no idea what I'm supposed to be doing. So we have a letter writing campaign that you all know about. That letter includes 9 of the bills, 9 bills. The leave behind document includes 9 bills. And all of your follow-up will be including all of the issues. I'm going to talk about that specifically in a second. During your meeting, those precious 10 to 15 minutes where you have to go through the script that Ryan was talking about, we're not going to ask you to talk about 9 bills. We're going to ask you to talk about 4. We have gone through an intensive process with our partners at ASRM and Resolve I went to board members, I went to key volunteers, and we've narrowed that list of 9 to these 4 that we're asking people to talk about in their meetings. And I'm very happy to talk about the whys behind this, but I want to make sure you know that those other 5 are not being left out. They're in the letter, they're in the leave behind, they're going to be very much highlighted in our follow-up from these meetings. So Access to Infertility Treatment and Care Act. This is a big bill that Cory Booker and in the past Rosa DeLauro have co-sponsored, that is about insurance coverage for medical treatment. The Veteran Families Health Services Act. This is the new name of the Patty Murray, Rick Larson bill, which we've been advocating for many years. The name has slightly changed. All of these will have bill numbers and so forth. You're going to just talk about the need for veterans and military to have access to building their families. It also includes in that bill adoption assistance for military and veterans to build their family. We want to co-sponsor and support the Adoption Tax Credit Refundability Act. We've also been advocating for this. This is a hugely bipartisan bill. So we could get a lot of traction with Republican offices, certainly on this one. And then we have a specific ask regarding medical research funding at NIH that is supported by a wide group of organizations, but we want to highlight that. If you have any medical professionals in your delegation, this is a great one for people like that to talk about, and certainly any patient advocates. So we're going to have talking points for these 4. You know, I will tell you that I'm actually not expecting the staffer to have that leave behind right in front of them. I know that that Tracy and Ryan said that it will be sent to them. It will be, but you know how things are. Where did it go in their inbox? So that doesn't matter, because the stories of your advocates in your delegation is what is most important. The details of these bills and the bill numbers, that's going to be on the leave behind. That's going to be in your follow-up. You're there really to show that we need support in people building their families. So the leave behind, we're going to give it to every advocate. It's a great tool for you guys to have. It's got a lot of facts and figures. And then you're going to use that in your follow-up as well. Because remember, it doesn't end at 5 o'clock on June 17th. We have a lot of work to do to get these 9 bills moving. So I know Julie Cruz from Family Equality is on. I don't remember what the next slide was, Tracy. If you could just, I might want you to come back to this. Yeah, go back one. So one of the things that I want you to tell your delegation is that if one of the issues that's really important to them, I'm just going to use the PCOS challenge, not PCOS challenge, the PCOS resolution, making September PCOS Awareness Month. If somebody in your delegation is like, that's super important to them, what is really awesome is that they can focus on that in their follow-up and provide a lot of information in the follow-up with the staffer about that particular issue, more details about it, and they can be kind of like the PCOS Awareness Month expert in your delegation for the member and the staffer. That is really awesome. So look at those, look at all 9 bills and find champions in your delegation for each one of them so that we can ensure that every office gets a lot of high touch follow-up on each of the 9 issues. There's even, you know, in our follow-up, we're going to be giving people links to websites, and there's one-pagers on a lot of these bills. That is phenomenal follow-up. Think of this as the first date, the speed date, and then you continue to build that relationship after June 17th. So Julie, I would love for you to share. Julie Cruz with Family Equality, our awesome partner there. She heads up federal government affairs and has she's like a rock star on so many advocacy issues. But Julie, tell us about Every Child Deserves a Family.
Yeah, and sorry, I didn't realize there were 9 bills, otherwise I think I might not have volunteered, but I'll make it super quick. I just want to let you know, if you're meeting with Democrats, they love the LGBTQ community. Between 20 and 40% of LGBTQ Americans have kids, but 63% of LGBTQ millennials are gonna have kids, and 2/3 of them are gonna do it through ART or foster care and adoption. So just want to thank you on behalf of our community to Resolve and to all of you. So again, not so helpful in selling to Republicans, but getting Democrats' attention can be useful. I just wanted to say that the bipartisan John Lewis Every Child Deserves a Family Act, it is being named after John Lewis, who was the champion for many, many years, is being introduced next week. And we're really focused on children. We had a hearing in the House where a young gay man talked about being adopted by gay dads and how terrible it would have been if they had been discriminated against. And then the Republican lead asked the Republican witness, why do you have such good retention for your foster children? And she said, because we have diverse families, including sexual orientation, like Weston said. So that is the winning message. And I will leave it at that, but we need diverse families for diverse kids, and we need more families for all 420,000 foster kids. By ending discrimination, we can achieve that goal. So I'll just leave it at that. And sorry, I didn't know there were 9 bills.
I know. Well, this is the thing. It's I don't know what they call, what's the term they say, you know, blessing of riches or something. I mean, we've never, ever had this. In fact, I even, you know, called some past chairs of Advocacy Day, and I said, oh my God, you know, what do we do? What do we do? And they are all just really important. And so, gosh, you guys, are you kidding me? We have 400 and some people right now. I think this morning we had 445 people registered. We are carrying the weight. I'm not going to speak for Julie's bill because they have a huge coalition of amazing organizations. But I need to tell you that some of these bills, we are it. This is it. They don't have huge coalitions of, you know, 25 national organizations. We are carrying the weight for this. And I need you to understand that. Everybody that we have talked to about these 9 bills is like Julie, they're thrilled we're including it. They're very happy that we're doing this. Please know how important your voice is. And if somebody doesn't get a chance to speak during that 5-10 minute meeting, they were in the room, right? They were in the room, and now they can follow up and really get to know that member of Congress and advocate for these issues that they care about. There's something for everybody. There's something for, and I'm not just saying we tried to do that. They are all so worthy, and our Hill Day is vitally important to move these issues. So let's go to the next one. Is this me too, Tracy?
Yes, I think we were just going to
You know,
briefly go through.
We don't want to like make this so complicated, but you're going to have this probably in your handbook, in your toolkit. But it's really important when you are working with your state delegation that you are aware of members that you're going to be talking to that are on these committees in the House and the Senate. There's a lot of committees here. That's because our issues cross various relevant committees. So, you know, if somebody in your delegation is going to be talking to a member and that member sits on the Appropriations Committee, it's great for them to know that and to use that in their follow-up so that they can make that connection on how important that is. So there's lots and lots of committees in Congress. These are the ones that you need to really pay attention to. Hopefully everybody in your delegation is going to look up their own member. It's super easy to go to their website and see what committees they're on. And you have this list of relevant ones, and you just kind of match it up and go, oh, my member's on appropriations. Cool. All right. So that's kind of how it works there. Go ahead, Tracy, with the next one.
All right, I'll turn it over to Ryan.
Great, great. I did a bad job earlier and I forgot to mention one very important thing. There are 3 people, Kelly, Carrie, and Annie. They are the state captain mentors. Okay. They are not acting as state captains this year solely to fill the role of supporting you. So if you have questions about, how do I organize a meeting? What if, I'm getting pushback during a meeting about a particular issue? Use them, use the mentors. In the state captain's manual, you will have their contact information. That's what they are there for. They want to help so that, oh, Kelly is a state captain. Thank you. Carrie is not a state captain. Annie is not a state captain, but that's what they are there for. They are there to mentor other state captains, particularly the ones that have never done it before. So please lean on them. Okay. We've already hit on this a couple of times. How do we make the most profound impact in the shortest time possible in these meetings? It's always worth revisiting this in every single meeting that we have. And you're going to hit on this in the meetings that you have with your delegations. We have very limited time to make our points. Okay. They're not going to sit on the call all day and wait for you to tell all of your stories and make your points. Going back to what I mentioned earlier, personally, I think you can reduce every single pitch to the answers to 2 questions. Why are we here? And how can you help us? This is the approach that makes me most comfortable. Maybe it's not yours. You do you. Okay. So why are we here? My name is Ryan Ferrante from Chicago, Illinois. Congressman Quigley, I live in your district. I am your neighbor. I, like everyone else on this call, is a volunteer advocate for Resolve, the National Infertility Association. My wife and I spent many years trying to have a family that always felt so far out of reach, and we exhausted our resources to have that family. I'm here on behalf of your constituents who are denied the opportunity merely because they have exhausted any resources that are available to them. Then we pivot. How can you help us, Congressman Quigley? That's why your constituents need your support, Congressman Quigley. We want to have families of our own, and we want to build families in all the ways that may be available. And so many will benefit from your support and co-sponsorship of the Access to Infertility Treatment and Care Act. Those who suffer from infertility need to know that their private insurance will cover their treatment for infertility like any other disease. And then comes the ask. You've got to ask or you don't get an answer. Will you co-sponsor the Access to Infertility Treatment and Care Act? Okay. Now, we can all share a personal story. That's the why, right? Find out the whys for your delegation. Barb just mentioned this earlier, and that can help you narrow their stories into that 30 to 60 second impact. And I suppose it goes without saying, but it's always worth mentioning to remind everyone to thank the member or the staff at the end of each call and ask if you can follow up, how you can follow up if they don't commit to support on the call. Okay. But again, everything that I just mentioned, lean on Kelly, lean on Carrie, lean on Annie. That's what they're there for, to help you help the delegation craft this pitch. Okay. You can go to the next slide, Tracy. Okay, so final recap. Next steps. You're going to receive information from your state captain coordinator with rosters and materials to help you. Schedule your practice sessions for sometime from June 3rd, the last day of registration, to June 14th. Obviously, you can't do that until you get your roster with the confirmed attendees. There's also going to be a cram session on Wednesday night, June 16th at 7:30. The Resolve team will be ready to address any questions that you have the night before. One last time, poor Tracy. Contact Tracy at her email address if you have any questions, or myself, or your state captain coordinator, or those state captain mentors. That all of their contact information will be in the manual. And last reminder, if anyone cancels, please let Tracy know so that we don't have any no-shows. Okay.
I have a question. How do we get a Zoom account and do our calls? Zoom accounts are free for, I don't know, it used to be 40 minutes, but they may have changed that. So you could probably get some of this done in one of those calls. But that's certainly a way to do it. I don't.
So there's,
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, there's more than Zoom. You're going to have a lot of people in your delegation. Hopefully, at least one person maybe that's a question when you reach out to the delegation. Does anybody have a paid Zoom account that we can use so that you're not limited to that 40 minutes? There are other options. Google Meet. Maybe somebody else has some other technology that you can use to conduct the meeting. The Zoom limit is only for the host, Kate says. So there are options, but you certainly can lean on, people within your delegation to hopefully somebody has a paid account, but you're always going to be able, maybe this is the first practice into narrowing your scope for the meeting. You've got 40 minutes to figure it out, or, maybe set up a couple of different calls. That's up to you guys.
I will say that the kind of the script really, and I saw William was on this, you steal the best ideas from other organizations, and this is something that PCO has challenged it on their Hill Day, and it's like a fill in the blank. You're gonna put people's names in, and if there's 8 little lines to put in people's names, and you can organize your meetings really easily that way, and that way everybody knows who's talking first, second, third, fourth, fifth. So that's all going to be in the materials that Tracy's going to be sending you. So I don't want people to get off of here and go, oh my God, how do I figure out the script? That's going to be in all the materials you're getting.
All right, I see a couple hands raised. So I want to get in a few questions before we close out. Jess, I see your hand.
Hi, Tracy. I actually have 2 questions. The first one, I just wanted to clarify. Last year, every delegate had access to the platform to enter in notes. Are we expecting this year that we want just one person to handle all of the note taking for the calls and then input that information on the platform?
Yes, I think it's up to the organization of what your team wants to do. So everyone will receive their own account and login, every single person that is a confirmed registrant. And so if one person wants to fill out, if you want to assign one person for each meeting, a different person to fill out notes, or however you want to, assign that.
But everybody could add notes. It
Yep.
no limitation. It was just meant to kind of like keep it simple, but you can do
Sure.
whatever you want.
No, that's fine. Thank you so much for the clarification. And the other question that I had is last year, I don't know who was, I'm assuming this came directly from Tracy. She handles everything with the brilliant ideas, but I received a postcard that said hello from Washington from Resolve, and that they were excited that I was participating. Are we planning on doing that again this year, or is that something that will not?
Yes,
we are. Okay.
They have been sent out, so you'll receive them.
Sorry, I didn't.
I know, it's okay. All right, Julie, I see a hand raised.
Yeah, this is just a logistical question, and you may have said this, but are you expecting a lot more registrants? Because the next steps were to go ahead and schedule our meeting, but I'm thinking maybe better to send out a doodle poll on June 3rd.
Yes, so we have, I think, like Barb said, we have about 445 people registered right now. I think it depends on what state you're in, if there will be an increase in numbers in that state, but we will definitely send you preliminary registration right now, and then we'll send you a finalized registration. So, depending on your area, if you think there's going to be a lot of increase, a doodle poll might be helpful.
Julie, we've been doing marketing, emails and stuff. The situation though is we have a lot of community partners like Hadassah. They have members in every congressional district, and you guys, and a lot of other organizations. And so they're sending stuff out. So I don't necessarily know their marketing calendar or schedule. So we, Tracy sees an increase when one of those groups sends something out, but everybody knows June 3rd it's closed. And so
All right, Noelle, I see a hand raised.
Yeah, this will be my first year as state captain, and I'm in lonely Kansas. But I just wanted to chime in and say that I think sometimes people that are super passionate tend to kind of overtalk their time limit. And so as team captains, I think what is great for everyone's goal and for us to make it through all 4 of those in a timely fashion is to really be respectful of the time. I was in a situation where I had a very passionate medical professional kind of leading, and I think it overshadowed some of the other content and some of the other folks on the team. And so I just wanted to throw that out there.
Thank you. Yeah, no, that's a great point. And then thinking of timing, we're about to close out, but I did want to call out Georgette Kerr. We've been working on the scorecard and co-sponsor document together. So I just wanted her to just provide a brief overview of that and an explanation, and give her a few minutes to chat.
Great. Thanks, Tracy. And it's really exciting to see everyone. This is actually my first advocacy day, my first time being a state captain. But my background is I'm a lobbyist, and I have been for 12 years. So it's really exciting to get to work on issues that we are also passionate about. But the scorecard is something that Tracy and Holly, who unfortunately couldn't be on the call today, and I have been working on for probably about 7 or 8 months at this point. And it kind of comes from a place where we had been getting feedback from past state captains and advocates that people who weren't as familiar with Washington felt it was like a little overwhelming to go to congress.gov and look for co-sponsors and then have to go to their congressperson's website to see what committees they were on. And some of the jargon was just a little confusing for folks. So what we've put together is a master spreadsheet that has all of the members of Congress. It'll tell you who's a new member, who's a returning member. It will tell you if they're a senator, when they're next in cycle, which can be, another thing that can be helpful in sort of nudging people to co-sponsor some of the things that we're asking for. It will tell you their party, whether they're a Democrat or a Republican. We have also started to sort of collect data. So it includes information on the bills from Advocacy Day that we were advocating for last year. So you will see that some of the bills for this year are reintroductions of past legislation. So it'll be really helpful to be able to pull up this spreadsheet, go into a meeting and say, your boss co-sponsored this bill last year. We really hope we can have his support again this year. So that information will be, really accessible to you. We also will have all of the bills, and the reason why we still haven't quite unveiled it yet is, I think some folks alluded to earlier in the call, we still have bills that are dropping this week, next week. And so we wanted to make sure we had it closer to finished product, but it will have all 9 of the bills, and they're kind of color coded separately for the 4 that Barb talked about that are actually the Advocacy Day kind of talking point bills, and then the other 5 that are sort of more of the follow-up bills that Resolve and its partners are also supporting. And we will be tracking the initial co-sponsors on there. Some of them already have quite a few, but I think it'll be exciting because it'll show advocates that there's a tremendous opportunity here to have an impact and sort of mark up, those tick marks for members who have co-sponsored. The other things that we've included on the scorecard itself, some of the key caucuses, for example, we have the PCOS awareness resolution on the sort of second set of bills. We have all of the members of the PCOS caucus sort of marked, so you will know a couple of other caucuses that focus on these issues. So that will be helpful to know in addition to what committees the members serve on. And then kind of wrapping it up with committees, we have all of the House and Senate committees, so you'll easily be able to see which members are on which committees as well. So that's the scorecard document itself. It's pretty overwhelming. It's organized by state, so you can kind of scroll state to state, and I think it's, kind of seeing it visually laid out all in one place, I think will show, that there are members in the delegations that are supportive. There are some delegations that are more supportive of our issues than others. But I think, what surprised me as I was working on it is, there is a lot of bipartisan support. So I think that this is meant to encourage every advocate that, there's an opportunity to have an impact here, and that every meeting we do will make a difference. And so to accompany the scorecard, we also have a little bit of a guide that goes with it. I think one of the things that will be really helpful to both state captains and advocates is we have a definition section. So any of the jargon you might hear in meetings, there's a clear term, for it with the definition. There's also sort of a Congress 101 primer, the numbers in the House and Senate, who's in control, that sort of thing. There is a description of each of the bills that sort of, is based off of what we've been using and the leave behind materials that we've been working on. But it's all kind of in one place. So when you're looking at the scorecard and you can see that someone is a co-sponsor, you have a real quick reference to see exactly what that bill is and what it does. And then we also have an overview of all of the caucuses, the type of issues that they work on, who the co-chairs of those caucuses are. So you have that information going into your meetings. And then for each of those relevant committees that was on the slide earlier, we've identified the chairs, the ranking members of those committees, and the jurisdictions of those committees as well. So it's a lot of information, but our goal was to really, one, make people excited, to take away some of that anxiety and overwhelming feeling, because, all of the data is in one place. And so, if you have someone who's a new advocate and a little nervous to do a meeting, they can look at this, 5 minutes before the meeting and kind of have a pretty good idea of what they're walking into. And then I think the other thing that's exciting about this project is it is something that hopefully we're going to continue beyond Advocacy Day this year. And there's so much potential for a document like this to help resolve sort of recognize members that have been especially supportive, for, us as advocates to hold members accountable, and making sure that they're co-sponsoring year after year, and that we're growing those numbers of co-sponsors on the bills. And it also gives us, good ideas about, potential partners in the future, or, when elections roll around, and we get questions, about what members we could support. We have a pretty good data dump, to show members that have been really supportive on our issues. So I think we're pretty close to wrapping things up. Like I said, we're just waiting for, I think, 1 or 2 more bill numbers. But I think what Tracy and Holly and I are going to do is we're going to do just a quick recording, probably similar to this, but much, much briefer, just to kind of walk you through the scorecard and make sure that everybody has a good idea of how it works. Because our vision was sort of that the state captains might, in that, kind of intro 40-minute Zoom call that you do with your delegation, kind of introduce it to the advocates as well, so that they know how to use it.
Okay, I want everyone to unmute yourself. Everyone unmute yourself, because we are going to give Georgette and her team an amazing big Yahoo round of applause.
Great job.
Oh my God, you guys, are you kidding me? That is incredible. Okay. Sorry, Tracy, I had
No problem. No, it's amazing. And there's so much data, and hopefully, you'll all find it in one place. And before we just wrap up, I see
Wait.
William has a hand raised.
Hi, everyone, and thank you, Tracy, Barb, and everyone for their really hard work. I just wanted to give you a heads up that the PCOS resolutions in the House and Senate, they're going to drop pretty close to Advocacy Day, so they've been pushed back to the week of June 7th. But for Georgette, Holly, and any others, if I have their contact information, I can give you who will be the original co-sponsors for those. So we're expecting the PCOS resolution to introduce probably with over 60 original co-sponsors, bipartisan support from 60 original co-sponsors, and hopefully on the Senate side, somewhere between 16 to 18 co-sponsors. So I'll give you those names so you'll have that for the scorecard. All right, but thank you all.
And
That's amazing.
And if the, your materials that you're going to have for your meetings and stuff, obviously they've been prepared like now, and the leave behind has to get printed and updated. So some of those bill numbers, you might, we're going to let you all know in advance. So just know that you might be handwriting in a bill number when you're doing your talking and that sort of thing. So we can update a PDF really easily for the leave behind with bill numbers. So, but we'll make sure everybody knows the up to the minute bill numbers, because William, I think there's another one too that's going to be a little bit close like that. So that always happens. So
All
Yeah,
right.
Joe,
Oh.
I was just thinking the same thing, it's great follow up to say, hey, we talked about these issues and good news, now we have a bill number and you can sign on. So that's always cool to do after June 17th. So I'm just super impressed because we've got William here, we've got Julie here, we've got a lot of our partners who are advocating for these issues. And we had a military meetup the other night of all of our advocates who are in the military and are our veterans. We just have this incredible, rich, diverse group of people advocating this year, and I'm just so pleased. And Tracy, huge round of applause. Tracy, Ryan, woohoo! Joe, Jesse,